Prep for, or you just
I had a big argument this last Wednesday, huge. Then I had a big, it's Thursday, then I had a brief doing that.
Time is approximately 7 p.m. and I'll call to order the June 13th, 2019 Farragut Board Mayor and Alderman meeting. Okay, we'll first start off with a prayer by Larry Broyles, followed by a pledge of allegiance to our country's flag.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you join me as we go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the privilege that you give us to live in a country that's free, where we're able to do the things that we'll do tonight in a way that's free, and we're able to accomplish things for the community which we live. Lord, I thank you for the privilege that you give us to live in East Tennessee, a place that every direction that we look, every place that we go is filled with the beauty of your creation. And Father, I thank you for this group, for the mayor, for this board of aldermen, their desire and their willingness and their commitment to serve our community. And so tonight, Lord, I pray that you would give them wisdom. I pray that you would give them insights into the things that they'll be discussing and deciding today. And that as they make decisions, God, I pray that this community would grow and prosper and accomplish all the things that you desire, to raise families, to build businesses and churches. And God, I pray that through it all, that we would see Jesus glorified in it all. And for it's in the precious name of Jesus that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, on the agenda, are there any changes?
Yes, sir, Mayor. We have one addition to the agenda tonight. We'd like to add under business items, item G, approval of Amendment 2 to emergency contract with Whaley Construction for additional pipe repairs to Campbell Station Road.
For approval with the amendment?
Okay, looks like we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? None? Okay, let's vote by saying yes.
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 Okay, the motion has been approved. Okay, on the mayor's report, I have two items. Both of them are thank yous to our staff. We recently had a two-part presentation by our codes staff for an update to the newly adopted 2018 building codes. Both presentations were well prepared and very easy to understand, and we had great feedback from all those who attended. And for Adam Price and Elliot Sievers, job well done. Second is I want to also recognize all of our staff inspectors on the Sitel project. Their constant help and instant response during each step of the build-out enabled the contractors to make this very difficult transformation in record time. Our building inspector, Carl Swasko, our code inspector, Elliot Sievers, and our fire marshal, Dan Johnson, a big thank you for making sure we did our part to make this project successful. Also, as a reminder, the board mayor and alderman welcomes and invites Farragut citizens to participate in all posted public meetings. We'll always set aside time for citizens forum after we finish town business. If you plan to participate during citizens forum or during a posted agenda item discussion, we ask that you pick up an agenda at the door when you enter and read the Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman public comment protocol that's printed on the back. If you can agree to the comment protocol, then please fill out a blue slip with your name and address on it and turn it in to our staff up here at the front. And at the appropriate time, your name will be called to speak. The comment protocol will be followed by all speakers during our meetings. I will now yield the floor to our Vice Mayor for her report.
Two things. One, we need to get our baseball team in here. Farragut High School baseball team won a state championship, and we should all be very proud of them. That was a wonderful accomplishment, and hopefully we can celebrate with them soon. The second thing I wanted to say was Sitel was a demonstration of how we'd like to move forward and how we worked well with them to get their building done in a very timely fashion so that they could get open and start working at it. Mayor Williams had a big role to play in that, coordinating with Jim Nixon, making that happen and staying on top of it. I don't think it would have moved as smoothly and seamlessly without his efforts. And we're very well served by Mayor Williams' efforts. So I wanted to thank him for that.
Thank you.
And that's all I had.
Okay, does any of the other aldermen have anything to report?
Yes, sir.
None? Okay. Okay, on approval of minutes, are there any changes to the minutes? Posted
sir.
minutes?
No, sir.
None? Okay, has everyone had a chance to review them? Okay, if so, do I have a motion to approve said minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion with a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
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 Motion to approve the said minutes is passed. Will be recorded as official minutes of the May 23rd, 2019 Farragut Board and Mayor and Alderman meeting. Okay, business items. We have we have 7 business items on the agenda tonight that will be presented for consideration. And we'll start off with the approval of the agreement with Homestead Land Holdings for construction of the Virtue Road roundabout.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in June of last year, the town reached an agreement with Homestead Land Holdings to work on Virtue Road, the new improvements there, 700 feet south of Kingston Pike to around 2,800 feet total in length, to improve that road. Also to add they're going to be adding a trail section along their section of that with a bridge that's going over the creek there. And so we've got a cost share agreement with the developer that as every house comes in, there's a certain amount that each building permit would pay to help with those road improvements. As we get further into the discussion and as the town was working on its Virtue Road plans, we identified the entrance to the Brookmere subdivision where Homestead's going to be working in as a good opportunity to put a roundabout in. And after discussions with the developer, since the town is going to be probably at least a year away from actually starting construction on this project, we've been working on an agreement with them for them to construct the roundabout and the town reimburse based on the construction cost of what you see before you tonight. I know town engineer Daryl Smith can give you more details about the actual improvements to the road and everything that's going to be involved there. But overall, the specifications that we will give them from our own engineer and design engineer, they've given us a lump sum contract of $536,285 for that. They would have 60 days to complete the improvements for that portion of Virtue Road between Sugarwood Subdivision and Vista. Would have to be shut down for about probably the whole length of that project, but that's a good place to do those detours around those two areas. Town attorney Tom Hale has been working on the amendment with the attorneys and the developer for Homestead, and that's attached for your consideration. This would come out of our CIP proposed budget for the construction cost of Virtue Road. And so we would ask and recommend for approval of this first amendment to the cost share agreement between the town and Homestead for these improvements.
I'll move to approve the First Amendment to the cost share agreement between the town of Farragut and Homestead Land Holdings for Virtue Road improvements.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
I have a question. This was put in front of is this a new updated one? And this one in here is not the one? Okay. Just making sure.
The only difference.
Mr. Hale's gonna comment on
The
it.
difference between what was in your packet that you got earlier and what's in front of you, we put in specifically the reference to the plans
Okay.
that are going to be finalized tomorrow, as I understand it. But there is the letter on the back has
Okay.
enough detail that it just gives a little definition to the extent of what will be done.
Okay.
And then we'll substitute the final engineering plans for that exhibit once they're finalized tomorrow.
Okay.
And representatives from Homestead are here if you have any questions of them as well.
Any questions?
So this, it sounds like we'll have it, the idea is to have it closed down, have that happen in 60 days. The roundabout constructed in 60 days, so that it'll be shut down for that length of time, which I'm pretty sure if we were doing it ourselves wouldn't be 60 days.
That's correct. I'm Russ Rackley with Rackley Engineering, representing Homestead. My address is on record, but I can give it again if I need to. Yeah, 60 days should be sufficient time. I think the reference was that we don't have, the town's consultant has not issued engineered stamped plans yet. I think the design is nailed down and real close, and our budget is fine, but we cannot construct. So as I think the reference to the change was that the 60-day clock doesn't start until we have,
Stamped
engineered
plans.
stamped plans.
Right.
Right, yep.
Naturally.
So let me ask you this, with the roundabout, it'll be closed for 60 days. When we go back in to improve the rest of that road, will we have to close it down again?
We need
Okay,
them because we have the
All right.
bridge just to the north of this.
okay, all right.
Bridge is the real reason.
Pardon me?
The bridge is the real reason. Okay.
Okay.
Our goal is to get this done and the road reopened before school starts back up in August.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Good goal.
So
Yeah.
when we close it down, obviously, they'll still have access out to head to Kingston Pike? And will that be?
Yeah, we'll probably run our current traffic control plan is for a closed to through traffic only from just past Everett or at Everett, and then a hard close. I'm sorry,
Virtue,
not
yeah,
Everett.
yeah.
Evans.
Evans.
Evans, yeah,
Okay.
at Evans, and then past Vista subdivision, we'll do a hard close for our construction people to get in and out of.
Yep.
And then coming from Kingston Pike, we'll have a signboard on Kingston Pike notifying of the detour, and then a hard close past Broadmoor. But
Okay.
before the bridge, so people
Yeah.
can turn up and cut through
Yeah.
Broadmoor if they need to.
Yeah.
Broadwood through Sugarwood.
Road,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Broadwood, Broadmoor, I apologize.
We knew what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I know. Well, we all know the area.
Yeah.
I apologize to everybody else. So yeah, we'll still have access in and out for our on-site and what we call the off-site or the roundabout construction, obviously.
Well, I'm asking more for when when the town goes in to finish the rest of it, how does that impact
Right.
you?
Well, it does not, because we will have access all the way up through Virtue to the roundabout. And
Okay.
that's actually, if you recall back several months ago when we talked about this, by putting the roundabout in now, not only completes, kind of the entrance to our subdivision, but it allows a natural turnaround for when you have to shut down to do the bridge work
Okay.
that's just north of on Virtue.
Okay.
Of our entrance, so that people that ignore the signage or otherwise drive past the road closed to through traffic, they will come to a dead end and turn around.
Okay.
Since you can't see the bridge work from back at Evans and Turkey Creek Road on Virtue. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds reasonable.
Great. Thanks, Russ.
yeah. no
Thank you.
problem.
Any other questions for Russ? Any for Darrell? Any for Tom? None? Okay. Okay.
Imagine most of that traffic's going to go funnel to Evans. I mean, that is a lot of traffic that's going to be funneled to McPhee.
Well, McPhee will have to, that's where it'll be.
Right, there's a lot of traffic that's coming from the Boyd Station and from under the underpass in the Chutto area.
Right, but they automatically go the way that it's being shut down.
Yeah, this is not the first time when they had to when they closed down the intersection at Everett Road and Kingston Pike, Union Road was the,
Yeah. Path for traveling.
yeah, and that's a worse road than
The problem is
Evans Road.
McPhee's the Audubon
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this side of the world,
yeah,
so that
yeah.
much traffic flying there is.
Well, if I could add, 2 weeks ago on a Friday morning when I was on site, I hadn't even got out of my truck and heard the horrific noise of a car that crossed the center line and went head-on with a propane delivery truck on Virtue.
Oh, yeah.
And had the road closed for several hours while we were trying to clean that up, and to the you know, the applaud of the contractors' employees. We all ran and did what we could up to the road to try to assist the children that were in the truck and everything. Virtue is in need. So sometimes things have to get a little worse before they get better as far as inconvenience, but from a safety standpoint, this is a huge deal. And most traffic patterns will change once the road is closed. People will start taking alternate routes. If the delays or the detour is inconvenient for them, they'll find another way until things open back up again. And nobody wants to hear that, and I understand. But you know, we are creatures of habit, and when our habits are forced to change, we find alternates. So it's unfortunate that we can't just snap our fingers and make this happen overnight, but the only way to get things done on the timeline that we proposed and for the price that we proposed is to have full access to the road to do construction without having to do it, you know, 1/3 at a time and try to maintain traffic. So, yeah.
And through the shutdown to fix Everett Road was a year and a half.
60 days will be nothing.
Yeah.
Then Oakley Downs they were forced out to Watt Road to come into, so
Yeah.
that's the price of progress.
Yes.
When the Virtue Road intersection was rebuilt at Kingston Pike, about 1999, it was closed for probably 90 days.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it was.
And the detour was through Sugarwood.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sure that was joyful.
It really wasn't as bad as you might think, but well, there's a little more traffic now than there was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Russ.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay, I have a motion with a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Okay, let the record show that the said agreement has been approved. Okay, next will be approval of bids for contract 2019-07, Campbell Station Road and Snyder Road intersection improvements.
You'll recall this is a fairly small project to improve the intersection at Campbell Station and Snyder Roads. If you'll go to the next, there should be there it is. The intent of the project is to extend the outside southbound lane from where it ends now up to the Snyder Road intersection. The purpose of that is to allow a double left turn movement coming from Snyder Road onto Campbell Station. There will be some signal modifications along with this, and all in all, it should be a pretty popular project once it's done.
Oh, yes.
We received 3 bids for this project on May 30th. Pavement Restorations Incorporated, PRI of East Tennessee, bid $144,057.95. Whaley Construction LLC bid $365,533 even, and Southern Site Contractors bid $400,771.75. You can see that's a pretty broad range of prices. It really, looking at the unit prices that PRI has provided, excuse me, their unit prices are in line with those of a larger project. This just kind of illustrates the volatility of a smaller project. If somebody really wants it, they can bid a reasonable price, and others, if they're very busy,
Bill. Okay.
we appreciate their interest.
We need 3 bids, so yeah.
PRI has had our annual roadway maintenance contract several times in the last few years. We've always worked well with them, and so staff recommends approval of the bids and award of contract 2019-07 to PRI of East Tennessee for their low bid of $144,057.95.
I'm going to move for approval of bids and award of contract 2019-07 to PRI of East Tennessee Incorporated for their low bid of $144,057.95.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Discussion?
Hey, Daryl, what happens if we don't get 3 bids?
We don't have to have 3 bids.
Well, you know, you're dangerously close here to doubling the cost of the project if what if PRI doesn't jump in? I just look at some of these line items that are priced $1,000, $15,000, and $30,000 by the respective bidders. $3,000, $45,000, $44,000.
Did you see the $92,000
Oh yeah,
mobilization?
I've got the 92 for mobilization back here. I mean, I would just say, I mean, if you're too busy, don't put that stuff out there because we're this close from having to use it. And I hope we can keep track of these companies because that, I mean, that type of quote almost stuck us with, doubling our project just because they were busy. I mean, I don't know. That just infuriates me when I see costs like that in areas that are just ridiculous.
And to kind of piggyback off what was being said, I was curious, has there been any thought to why the mobilization would be so much higher with the other two bids? And also the traffic control is obviously extremely higher. And I just want to make sure that PRI hasn't missed something that the other two have picked up on.
I don't think they have.
Okay.
I think they just have a very reasonable price for mobilization. A lot of times contractors will put a lot of their profit in the mobilization because it's the first thing paid. I mean, you pay it the first month.
Okay.
Personally, I prefer that they don't owe us money
Right.
1 month into the project or owe us work.
Okay.
It can vary a lot. It really just depends on where they're putting most of their profit.
You all are comfortable with $3,000? We'll be able to have the traffic control necessary for the project where
Yes.
the other two entities were about $45,000.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, seems like some of the contractors use their own staff for that, and then some of them hire
Hire
out
out, okay.
as far as a outside vendor. I think that PRI uses their own staff, if I'm not mistaken, so.
Okay. Thank you.
How long do you think this project will take to complete?
I wish I'd looked at that before I came in here. I don't have the completion date on that. I believe it's September.
So a start date would be
90
good.
days or 120 days?
Pardon me?
120 days on that,
I
Daryl?
think we had 120 days.
It's going to run into school starting. I think that was one of the things we were trying to get done, if possible, before school starts. But I don't think that's going to be able to happen in this case.
I think probably the holdup for the project will be probably getting the signal components. But if they get the grading done and they can do that really very quickly. They will be out of the way by the time school starts.
So the grading will be done, and that's not a lane yet anyway, so the traffic pattern will stay the same.
Traffic pattern should stay the same.
Okay.
Once school
Hey,
starts.
Daryl, this is obviously an area that we need to address, and I'm glad we are, but in addressing it, we weren't planning for Topgolf and an entertainment district to be over there.
We may have another project coming
That's my
at some point in the future.
So I guess that's my question. Is this something that can accommodate the next 5 years, 6 years of what's coming? Or is this something that we do and then immediately 12 to 24 months later we say, oh, surprise, we've got to do it again and make it even bigger? And should we consider making this more expansive now?
I don't think we're going to probably ever need a triple left turn there. I can foresee a through and right lane, which would be added on to the north of
right.
this.
And straight through.
Snyder, you mean?
To Snyder
Yeah.
and to make a right to go north.
To across the hill.
Yeah.
I think as you see more traffic that's figured out that you can go from Campbell Station exit to the Food City a lot quicker than you can get off at Hardin Valley Road during school times.
Yep.
And go to the Food City. I think you're going to see that particular
I do too.
way. And, I mean, the traffic there will increase going across the hill. So, but I think this is a good start. Knowing what we know now, not knowing what will happen in the future.
Yeah. But what you're talking about really is a different project, because that's talking about expanding Snyder Road, not expanding Campbell Station, and this is expanding.
Right.
This is providing a second lane to Campbell Station. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Be the other side of it would
So
be-
one more question. So does PRI have a history of coming in with a bid and then later coming back and saying, we left something out, we need more money?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Darrell?
None?
None? Okay. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Let the record show the approval of the bid for contract 2019-07. Okay, next will be approval of bids for contract 2020-06. It will be the HVAC maintenance.
Good evening. I've got two bids this evening, and I'm just going to clarify on the front end for both of them. Both of these are maintenance contracts. They're both for 3 years. Each year is determined a specific price, then the next year, and then the third year. And at any point in time, we can negotiate to not renew their contract if they're not doing well. But we do this so that it guarantees them, gives us a lower price on the front end. If a person has to buy a piece of equipment or get in here, that they can, make it work out instead of a 1 year at a time contract. So the very first contract is for the HVAC contract, contract number 2020-06, HVAC maintenance to the town hall here. And this is a fully inclusive 3-year contract for the maintenance of the HVAC systems, heating, cooling, and exhaust fans here in the building. It's set up for no matter what happens in this building, they will take care of it under this contract. That includes compressors, full units, all the PMs, everything. Anytime a unit goes down, no matter what time of the day it is, they'll come out and they'll fix it for us. We don't have any additional cost with this contract. And we bid this out, and we're recommending awarding of this contract to the vendor based on the yearly price and the ability to perform the work. And we opened bids on the 30th of May and had 2 contractors that bid on it. We had a lot more that wanted to bid but just didn't turn a bid in. But Del Air Mechanical is our current contractor that we've had for the last 3 years. They've done a great job with our system. They're very responsive in everything we do. So I'd like to propose a motion of approval of the bids for award of the contract 2020-06 to Del Air Mechanical Contractors in the amount of $14,000 for the first year.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay.
And how old are our units?
These are all new.
We have some brand new units that we put in 3 years ago, I believe. All the double units, the 10 main units that serve 5 sections of this building are double. They're tied together. Those are almost brand new, high efficiency units. Then we have the one that's serving the museum area where Julia is, and that meeting room back in there, the storage room, her office. It's about 11 years old. The elevator room is the original unit, but it hardly ever turns itself on, and so.
I guess my question is, are we looking to having to replace any of the units? You thinking in the near future, are we okay?
Now, we've got 3 heat pumps that's also serving the community development and engineering office, and they've been up there since y'all moved up there. I don't even remember the year now, but they've been up for a little while, but we haven't had any problems. But we don't have any plans of upgrading anything that we have right now this year. And I mean, that's something we look at each year. But right now, we're not having a lot of issues with any of the units. And tomorrow they'll all go out, and I'll be getting phone calls. But so,
Thanks for the update.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, I have a motion with a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
Yes?
Okay. Let the record show that approval of bid for contract 2020-06. Okay, Bud, you're up again. Approval of bid for contract 2020-07, street sweeping.
This is another 3-year contract, as I said. We do street sweeping all throughout town on our main roads where we have curb and gutter in the town. This is another contract that they come in once a month, and they sweep all the main roads, and then they sweep the parking lots of all of our parks, town hall, and public works. They do that 5 times a year, so they set up a schedule to take care of that. Just a little back history, Husky Vac has done this contract for, I don't even remember how many years, but it's been a long, long time. And so when the bids came in this year and I called him, he's retiring. So he's just finished sweeping for us last week, and he sold his sweeper. He sold everything that he has. So that's one of the reasons that we only have the one bid in here, and that's Sweeping Corporation of America. They've bid numerous times for us, and it's a national company, and so you'll see that the prices are quite a bit higher than what we've paid in the past. So we've gotten a good, sweet deal for a long time.
Who bought the equipment?
I have no idea.
No idea? Okay.
Yeah, it was, David and I talked about buying equipment. I don't know that we want to get into that, but anyways, it's we recommend the award of the contract to the vendor based on the yearly price and ability to perform the work, which, like I said, they've done it nationally. And we received that one bid, and we'd like to propose a motion to award the contract 2020-07 to Sweeping Corporation of America in the amount of $40,897.50 for the first year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
I was just wondering if possibly this gentleman sold his equipment to someone locally and they're going to go in business. Might be, no, not the case?
Nope, it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, I'm sorry, were you done?
Okay.
Okay. We're going to improve Union Road in the next couple of years. Will that be added to the street sweeping? So every time we improve a collector or arterial, we add it to our street sweeping?
Yes, as long as they have curb and gutter, that we can sweep it. Yeah, we've been adding them as we add them. And what they do is we basically go back to them and just do a price adjustment, or we pay them by the hour, which in this contract you'll see an hourly price.
Well, they do this at night, right?
Pardon?
They do this at night?
They do most of it at night. Sweeping Corporation told me that they would do all of theirs at night.
Okay.
Don used to do Grisby Chapel Road and some other roads that you don't want to be on with a street sweeper during the day. He used to do those at night, and then he would come and do some of the more open areas during the day.
Okay.
But Sweeping Corp said they would do everything at night.
Do they have when they're sweeping, is there a vacuum that's pulling all that stuff up? What
Yep.
is?
What you have is you have brushes they're steel brushes, and they're brushing that curb and gutter, and what they're doing is pushing everything out underneath the sweeper, and then full width of the sweeper is a long tube that is a vacuum. So they're vacuuming underneath the truck the whole way.
Do we have the parking lot emptied when they? I mean, do they give us a certain time they're going to do our parking lot?
Here?
Yeah.
No. My guys, they mow here and blow every single week. And so there's very little in this parking lot that they get to do.
Okay.
But you don't see where they've not missed, or if they've missed something. They'll blow out from underneath the vehicles when they're here.
Oh, okay.
And the corners and stuff like that. They do that at everywhere because they can't sweep into a corner.
Any more discussion? Okay, I have a motion with a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Let the record show the approval of the bid for contract 2020-07.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be approval of the FY 2020 committee appointments. Okay, I guess we'll need to refer to the committee booklet for committee application information.
Just read them off?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the Arts and Beautification Committee is Jerry Janot, Miriam McGill, and Brittany Brown. Plumbing, Gas, Mechanical is Mark Lauer. BZA is Keith Alley. School Liaison Committee is Alice Thornton and Ted Insink. Museum Advisory Board, Steve Stowe, Annie Judkins, Carolyn Coker, Barbara Murphy, and Todd Klepper. The Farragut Tourism Committee, Julie Blaylock, Ashley Lynn, and Wendy Lynch. Parks and Athletics is Scott Russ, Bonnie Tharp, Randy Armstrong, Jeff Ulian, and Cami Dakashani. Stormwater is Violet Frudenberg, Ed Whiting, and Maria Mazzaros. VRB is Mark Lehman, Cynthia Holyfield, and Jeannie Stowe, and Randy Armstrong. And then the Sign Committee, which is a temporary committee, we have Ron Pinchuk, which is the board representative, Ann Brunn, Steve Krompowski, Julie Blaylock, Betty Dick is the FMPC representative, and David Freeman is the VRRB representative.
That's the other thing, David Freeman. That's one we didn't have.
Betty Freeman.
Dave Freeman.
Oh.
He's on the VRRB now.
I'm going to move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? None? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
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 Okay, let the record show the approval of the FY 2020 committee appointments. Okay, next will be approval of Resolution R 2019-03, a fee resolution.
Yes, sir. We had a workshop on this at our last meeting, and there's only one change from your previous meeting to this one. It's under engineering, it's the drainage fee. There's an increase. The current fee is $30 per lot for the residential development and 2 cents per square foot for impervious surface. And so that's going to go up approximately 2%. So that's the only change from our previous workshop.
Okay, thank you, Allison.
I'm going to move for approval of Resolution R-2019-03 fiscal year 2020 fee resolution.
I'll second.
Discussion?
So there was only one change since our workshop.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any others? Okay. Have a motion with a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Let the record show the approval of Resolution R 2019-03. Okay, next will be G, and I'll let David read that one off.
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is approval of Amendment 2 to emergency contract with Whaley Construction for additional pipe repairs to Campbell Station Road. And I'll turn this over to Town Engineer Darrell Smith for discussion.
Yes, it seems we have discovered another void that has developed alongside a stormwater culvert under the roadway. This time, I don't think it could be at any more difficult place. But it is just north of the eastbound ramps under Campbell Station Road on the southbound side. That was discovered yesterday. This is we've created this amendment to the contract that you approved in February with Whaley Construction. You'll recall that was for emergency repairs in Sedgefield subdivision. Later on in March, you approved an amendment to add Red Mill Road. We had a similar problem there. The Amendment 2, and it was before you tonight, it was included, I guess, in front of you this evening. There's a map showing the location. This is an elliptical corrugated metal pipe. It's 20 by 28. That's about the equivalent of a 24-inch pipe, about 88 feet long. We've more or less coordinated this with Whaley already to get their ideas on how to address this. They're proposing to work at night, Mondays through Thursdays, between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. Typically, by 7 p.m., traffic is a lot lower. They will close one of the westbound off-ramp. That's a double left coming off of westbound 40. They'll close one of those lanes and direct that traffic into one lane and just maintain one lane while they're doing the work. When they leave in the morning, everything will be out of the way and traffic operations will be as they are. They'll put steel plates over anything that they need to bridge. So all that being said, staff recommends approval of Amendment 2 to the agreement with Whaley Construction to add pipe repairs at Campbell Station Road to their contract scope of work.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
I'm looking forward to the day that we are not doing these on an emergency basis anymore. Just looking forward to that.
I think David has, and he and I have talked a little bit about this. We're going to put out a contract like our annual maintenance contracts for major repairs like this so that we have bid line items.
Okay.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, vote by saying yes.
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 Okay, let the record show the approval of Amendment 2. Okay, tonight we have 4 ordinances to review tonight, 3 for first reading and 1 for second reading. And we'll start out with the second reading, be ordinance 19-22. It's an ordinance to establish fiscal year 2020 budget for the general fund, State Street Aid Fund, Capital Investment Fund, Equipment Replacement Fund, and the Insurance Fund budgets of Town of Farragut, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June the 30th, 2020. Are there any changes since the first reading?
Yes, sir. There's a few changes I wanted to touch base on in the general fund from first to second reading. One is a couple of changes in expenditures. $5,000 for splash pad feature replacement in the parks budget. There's also a change in $80,000 for the new building code software, where we have that in this year's budget that we're in currently. We're not going to spend all of that money in this year's budget, so we've actually decreased the expenditures in this year's budget by $80,000, but increased them in next year's budget. So it's a net zero cost difference. It's just moving the $80,000 from one year's budget to the next. And finally, we have an additional $14,500 for street sweeping, which the board just heard from Bud earlier tonight about that cost increase there. Also, we have an increase in revenues projected for the end of this fiscal year of $80,355 to building permit revenues based on the amount of revenues we've received to date. No other changes were made to any of the other funds. So overall, our total revenues in the general fund are projected at $11,352,072. Our expenditures for general fund are projected at proposed for $7,436,187. Our State Street Aid Fund budget projected revenues and expenditures totaling $865,000. Our FY 2020 CIP, total expenditures of $21,345,000. We have our Equipment Replacement Fund, total beginning balance, fund balance of $907,254. Expenditures of $192,000 with ending fund balance of $898,254. We also have our ADA Capital Fund, which is our new fund this year. Total of transfers in of $150,000 from general fund. We also have our insurance fund of no proposed expenditures this year. Total ending fund balance of $101,616. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions from our board, but those are the only changes we had from first to second reading.
Okay, let's start off with a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, now we have discussion. To David? None? Allison? None? Okay. If not, we have a motion and a second. This will be by roll call, by the way.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay. Let the record show that ordinance 19-22 was approved on the second reading, and I have to give a thank you to David and Allison for a job well done here.
Well done.
Allison gets all the credit for that.
Okay, next 3 will be first reading. And we'll start off with ordinance 1919. It's an ordinance on first reading to amend Chapter 2 definitions to remove reference to clustered housing units in the definition of house, trailer, and amending Chapter 3 specific district regulations, Section 11, 12, 15, and 28, to remove references as applicable to group housing facilities, elderly housing, group housing, and elderly group housing.
Okay,
Mark?
this really is just a housekeeping item. When we were going through helping some customers with some things, we realized there were some obsolete terms and uses that actually became obsolete when we made some changes to the zoning ordinance back when we amended the S1 zoning district and provided for assisted care living facilities and kind of redefined those elderly care type uses. So really, there's a few sections where there's some terminology that is no longer used in the ordinance, and we just need to have those deleted. When this was presented to the Planning Commission in April, they did unanimously recommend approval of Ordinance 1919, and the staff recommends approval on first reading.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 19-19 on first reading.
Okay, discussion?
I have none.
None? Okay. Again, the vote will be by roll call. Please.
All right, Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Yes.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Okay, let the record show that ordinance 1919 was approved on first reading. Okay, next will be ordinance 19-20, an ordinance on the first reading to amend Chapter 2, definitions to provide for definition for short-term rental unit, bed and breakfast, permitted use, prohibited use, and to modify the definition of family, and Chapter 4, Sections 4, 10, and 14 to clarify permitted and prohibited use, prohibited short-term rentals, and further addresses the use and development of lots and parcels.
I like to make my ordinance a little longer than most other people.
What you do, Mark?
So I know you appreciate that. This does include quite a few things. So as you all know, the topic of short-term rentals has been discussed in various communities for a long time. The state actually passed some regulations back in 2018 to try to address this at the statewide level. And you all talked about it at the strategic planning session in January and expressed a desire to not provide for short-term rentals in the town. We conducted a workshop in March that was kind of a joint Planning Commission Board workshop to really review the topic of short-term rentals, describe what those are, talk about how they could be regulated, how they existing non-conforming short-term rentals would have to remain. There are certain provisions that could lead to their removal, but and we talked through all those things, and basically the Planning Commission, similar to the board, expressed a desire to have the staff try to work on coming up with an ordinance language that would prohibit short-term rentals in Farragut. So this particular ordinance, we tried to, while we were at it, address some other things related to this and permitted and prohibited uses. So we obviously provided in Chapter 2 a definition for short-term rental units, and that's actually the definitions that's used in the state law for that one. And then we defined bed and breakfast, because that sometimes people kind of think of that as a short-term rental, but it's really not. So we defined that specifically in terms of how we would want it to be treated and applied in the town, because bed and breakfast is allowed in 3 of our zoning districts. We don't, to my knowledge, have any in the town currently, but we do have it as a permitted use in 3 zoning districts. So we wanted to define what that is in Farragut and what would constitute a bed and breakfast. And then while we were at it, actually define what is a permitted and a prohibited use. We really, it's kind of common sense that you would think, but it doesn't hurt to go ahead and define those things and make it very clear, what that means in the context of the zoning ordinance. And then we modified the definition of family to specifically exclude a short-term rental unit as being recognized as a family type use. And then, of course, this ordinance provides for a prohibition of new short-term rental units, and then we refer to the state law in terms of grandfathered units, and they would be allowed to remain as long as they are not discontinued, which means they're abandoned for more than 30 months. A community can also proceed with removing short-term rental if it has violated other provisions of the community, like nuisance complaints that you've received 3 within a 12-month period and things like that. So there's other ways that you could potentially, get those removed if they became an issue. So when this was presented to the Planning Commission in May, they did unanimously recommend approval of Ordinance 19-20, and the staff recommends approval on first reading.
I'll move to approve ordinance 1920 on first reading.
And I do have someone that's signed up to speak.
Yeah, we'll do that during discussion.
Okay.
Okay, we have and now it's time for discussion. Anyone signed up? Let's see. Jennifer has signed up
For Roach.
Hey, thank you. Jennifer Roach, Knoxville Area Association of Realtors.
Before you start,
Yeah.
I asked Ron, because Jennifer wants to speak to this, and she has information to give us. I asked him if he would be willing to waive the 5 minutes, because it could get more in depth, and we need that information, and you were willing to.
Yes.
So it's just so Jennifer's free to give all the information that she needs to give.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the invitation. I've been working, had a meeting with Trevor on a few things, and meeting with Mark on the sign ordinance and things like that. So I'm happy to. That's not me, that's the air. Okay.
Yes.
Happy to, we're going to lend some help on the sign ordinance as well, because that's fun, and there's lots of legal issues in there. So
Take that over then.
I don't think it's going to be fun.
it's, so it's been really good, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here, and sorry I missed some opportunities to speak earlier in the year. I'm going to blame that on being really busy with Recode Knoxville. So, but to get to this, so what our association with realtors, what we look at is land use policies and private property rights, and try to look for decisions in policies related to land use and property use that are going to be good for the people that want to do short-term rentals and the folks that are around those short-term rentals. What's best for maintaining long-term housing, and and also to take into account, of course, the health, safety, welfare, and nuisance issues that the town may have to deal with. So when we look at short-term rentals, what we really advocate for in a suburban type area, not an area where you're in a niche community like a beach location or someplace where it's more of a tourist mecca, but in a suburban area. What we like to advocate for is in residential zones that short-term rentals are not banned, but are limited to those that are only owner-occupied, which means that I live in my house, it's my primary residence, I can rent out a room or rooms, and I would be able to do that short-term rental. I would not be able to be an investor or even somebody that owns that house and decides I'm moving, but I'm going to keep that house as a short-term rental and just rent it out. We don't like to see that in suburban areas, especially in a time now where we've got a huge affordability crisis with price per square foot and housing prices going way, way high, and inventory being a lot lower than it really needs to be. I can get into that more on another time. but it maintains the long-term housing stock. It maintains the owner's pride in that home, but it also gives them the opportunity to, if they want, build wealth, if they're on a fixed income, to help pay their bills, rent out a back room or something like that. The owner-occupant limitation is something that really protects the private property rights, the interests of the town, the interests of the neighborhood, and the long-term housing stock. You're not taking long-term occupants out of there. There's two different ways I've seen municipalities do this, and Farragut can figure out what they're most comfortable with. One is the owner-occupant, you can rent out a part of your house, but the owner has to be there while the short-term rental is going on. Another way to do it is where the owner doesn't have to be there while the house is being rented. They can leave, maybe they have a vacation house somewhere else and they're going to that for the weekend while their entire residence is being rented out as short-term rental. So those are the two different options there. What we see with short-term rentals versus, say, hotel motels is that we see a different clientele. It's a different price point. If you look at the ones in Farragut, I think there's 7, 6, 7, 10 at most. 10's a high number. The prices are $27, $65 a night, things like that. It's a different type of price point. It's a different type of lodging. If I'm comfortable staying at Airbnbs, I'm going to look there first, or short-term rentals. If I'm comfortable staying at hotels, I'm going to look there first. It really is a different type of clientele and a different pricing structure. And there are, like on platforms like Airbnb and things like that, there's super hosts and hosts that get high reviews and really take pride in their rental and things like that. And what we've seen in suburban areas that do allow this owner-occupant limitation is that these hosts help sell the area. I mean, who better to help sell Farragut than Farragut residents? They're here. It's an owner-occupied short-term rental. They've got guests here, and they're going to say, hey, great, here's all these local places that you can go. They're going to sell Farragut for you. It's a wonderful kind of organic relationship that happens there. We also, in other municipalities, see increases in short-term rental use around sporting events. I know that's something that's been talked about a lot about here in the master plan for Parks and Rec, for getting certain types of sports events and tournaments here. It's another way to add more, to have more people in the town, to add that extra bump there and what you can offer for those tournaments. And it also can help a little bit, there's not much, it can help a little bit with revenue. It's not going to replace the halls tax, that's going away for sure, but a small permit fee, an annual permit fee, there are hotel motel taxes, and I know some of these go to the municipality, some go to the state, but there's hotel motel tax, sales tax, gross receipts tax, the business license, things like that. I know there may be some concerns about the amount of staff time it would take at the town level. There aren't that many now. I don't think there will be that many if a short-term rental ordinance is put in place where you do allow owner-occupieds. City of Knoxville did not see the ordinance come in place and then see a huge jump in short-term rentals right after that. So I don't think you'll see that as well. But if Farragut moves in a direction and you do see a ton of them, reassess at that time. I talked about the different clientele and pricing, and these short-term rentals and have really been born from the sharing economy, the gig economy. It's all part of the whole picture of a place now, of a town. You've got hotel motels, you've got Airbnbs, short-term rentals on other hosting platforms. It really is part of what people are looking for when they're looking at your town to come here for various reasons. And it's also used for different purposes. My realtor members are often asking for, hey, I've got somebody coming in town. They don't close on their house for 3 weeks. We need someplace, do you have a short-term rental I can use for, 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. We'd already talked about tourism stays. There's corporate short stays. I know most of those are going to be with what you think of somebody coming in and staying at like a microtel or something like that. But these The corporate short stays I'm talking about are when a family's coming in town. Again, they're coming in, they're relocating here, maybe the house isn't quite ready. And we've also seen some really great stories out of short-term rentals with when natural disasters happen and people have to be relocated. Folks are opening up their homes and housing folks with their extra rooms, and that's a revenue benefit for the homeowner and a great place to house some folks while there's, a natural disaster is going on, unfortunately, where they live. So that's a lot of the reasons, policy considerations about allowing short-term rentals in a very limited fashion. Let's see. So some of the, I know it can be a very polarizing issue, and we saw that in Knoxville, I've seen it in a lot of different places, but when you put in this owner-occupant restriction, it brings in the pro-short-term rental folks and the anti. It brings them in closer together. I don't know if you'll have either side agree on everything, and I've said, you probably have a good short-term rental ordinance if both sides are a little bit unhappy, but I think we've seen the owner-occupied limitation work well in Knoxville and other places. So, some of the legal considerations, I'm sure you went through that in your workshop, and from what I've seen on the cities, the town's documents, you guys have, done a great job on going through all that, and Mark with the grandfathering issues or considerations. There's, we talked about folks, they've got the right to rent. They've got the right to a lot of, their bundle of property rights, and one of the main ones of those is the right to rent. Now, most of the case law on that is long-term rental, right? But there's been a lot of case law recently about that right to rent goes to short-term rentals. So it would be nice to allow that, at least in a limited fashion, that's going to keep with, what the neighborhood would see as not intrusive, and the town would see as propping up tourism a little bit. I know that hopefully this has already been talked about, but anything the town allows would not supersede a neighborhood's covenants and restrictions. An HOA can still ban short-term rentals, okay? They can still decide to do that. I've talked with Vice Mayor about some of the things that you would like to do, like inspections and things like that. We really want to do this the right way. And to do short-term rentals the right way, you can get into the weeds, you can get really complicated and things like that. But I think there is a simple structure that the town might look at going to, which is doing a lot, not reinventing the wheel, but doing a lot of what Knoxville has done and pulling from what they've done. We'd like to see Knox County do that as well. I think the geographic area and kind of the different amenities that we share, it would be great to have a uniform short-term rental regulation platform all over those three separate entities there. So a simple permit application in lieu of an inspection, like a safety inspection or something like that, an affidavit of, I think City of Knoxville calls it, it's a good one, affidavit of safety and something else. And a reasonable fee, like we said, for the permit. That can go over, the proof of ownership, a quick layout of, showing the layout of the home and where the bedrooms are, a notice that you might, a notification that you might need some more homeowners insurance, on the affidavit, getting a business license, having smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detector, fire extinguisher, and a hold harmless agreement to the town of Farragut. And there's also an option to notify your neighbors that you're going for a short-term rental permit. So a quick notification sheet. Have you guys seen the packet that City of Knoxville has? No? Okay, I'll pull that out here. I only brought one copy, but
Jennifer,
I'll give you my copy.
Do people that are grandfathered in, are they required to do this as well?
They're required to have a permit, yes.
Okay.
I believe they're required to have a permit. Yes, they're required. In the City of Knoxville, they have three types of permits. They have the owner-occupied permit, which is in residential zones, They have the non-owner occupied permit, which is in non-residential zones like the downtown district. Farragut might want to do owner occupied in all of its districts if it decides it's a little more conservative that way, and that's fine. That's still an allowance to be able to use your property there. And they also have a third one, which is for the grandfathering. And I guess, the 7 or so that I saw online would be grandfathered so long as they were paying their sales tax as well. So they may or might, that's something that the folks that say, oh, I'm grandfathered, a lot of them have missed that, and they don't have that protection. So it might, get them in compliance as well. But the City of Knoxville short-term rental permit operator application is very straightforward, and it's got a quick list of attachments, proof of ownership, site plans, affidavit of life safety compliance. That's basically saying the City of Knoxville or the town of Farragut has nothing to do with the safety of your home. You've got the required number of smoke detectors, where they are. You have our list of requirements, and you're going to adhere by them. And then one other thing is to have a local contact. So on the permit, it says, who's the 24-hour local contact should something occur with the guests or public services, I guess, are having to be called. The site plan, just so they know, okay, yeah, you do live in a 3-bedroom house. I mean, it's not like an architect has to draw it. They just, draw your house kind of like that there. And then notifying your neighbors says, you have to notify the neighbors adjacent, I'm not sure if that's the term they use, but directly beside you, and just says, here's the neighbors you have to notify, and here's the little paper you put in their mailbox. So I think Knoxville has we worked very heavily with them on their ordinance and their permitting and application, things like that. And I think they have a really good middle of the road ordinance and application. There's nothing onerous on property owners or the city. All your nuisance laws are still in place, all the impacts. If you have owner-occupied rentals, you're likely to have 9.9 out of 10 folks that really care about their property, really those super host folks if you keep with the owner-occupied. Let's see. So that would be our recommendation is to not ban these, but just hang tight and let's put something together that's simple but works and lets folks do this. You've just hired a tourism person. You're working on that as part of your strategic plan. Banning short-term rentals in today's economy and where it's moving and trying to increase tourism, they just don't meet up in everything that we've seen. So I would love to work with you guys on doing something there. And happy to provide any materials or answer any questions.
Have you seen in City of Knoxville, have you seen any of the HOAs amend their covenants
Yeah.
to ban them?
Yeah.
Okay, so they've come back and went ahead and did that.
Example to the amendments?
Of the HOA amendments, City of Knoxville, after the City of Knoxville, or during the process that the city was going through in putting together their short-term rental ordinance, some HOAs amended their bylaws or their covenants and said short-term rentals are not allowed in our, and they had to, just like any other amendment, they had to do it through their policies and procedures.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Long-term rentals were still allowed, of course, in there.
Well, I'll admit to all of you, this, one of the reasons why I was kind of wanted to move this off of my plate was I'd like to move it off of Community Development's plate because they have so many more things that are of larger concern to me. This, obviously, we don't have a lot of them in existence in the town of Farragut. So it's not a big issue, but we did need to address it because not having it listed as a use was no longer considered an exclusion of that use. I know that we have one, there's one that I'm aware of, I think in the Fox Den area, and it sounds like it's maybe quite possibly somebody on a fixed income who's older who would like to stay in her home and is just using this as an ability to, and when I think about that, I struggle with that because I don't necessarily have a problem with that, with the homeowner occupied. And I certainly wouldn't want to force someone in a position where they become on a fixed income and they'd like to stay in their home, and the only reason they can't is because they can't afford property tax or expenses get too much. But I also did not want to pile on to our community development, which is completely overwhelmed with a great deal of other things that they're trying to deal with. So, and I went down the road of we got to permit, we've got to inspect it, we've got to enforce it, and those were my concerns. And it sounds like the City of Knoxville has addressed it that way. I'm still on the fence, but I would love to hear what other board members feel.
Well, I think back in January when we had our strategic planning session, we discussed this at that time, and I think there was a lot of concern that this might it might be something we're going to react to instead of being proactive. We have to react to, and it's get a handle on it right away by banning it, and then if there is a need, we could come back later if we all agree to add something back in an ordinance that would work towards the benefit of the town and controlling it to some respect, whether it be permits or whatever. But I think we felt uncomfortable back in January that we don't know which direction and how quick this might overcome us. and that, I think that's where we were at, and that's why I still feel that way. I'd like to agree with what is before us today and look at it more closely going forward. And if we decide at a later date we want to go back and come up with an ordinance to approve it in some way, then that's where that's where I'm at right now.
I have a couple questions. So the short-term rental would be subject to sales tax.
There's a state sales tax.
Right. So on the 10 that we have here in Farragut, are we collecting the sales tax like we would for the hotels?
Is there sales tax or the occupancy tax?
There's the occupancy tax. Airbnb will actually collect that, and Airbnb has most of them, if not all of them in Farragut. Airbnb will collect that for you and remit it to the town. That's what they do.
They're collecting for Knox County because there's a Knox County occupancy
They're collecting for
tax.
Farragut?
We don't
no.
have an
Okay, so
occupancy
there's
tax.
They're collecting for City of Knoxville, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no...
County.
Knox County hasn't addressed this yet.
But
And
they have an occupancy tax.
they have an occupancy tax, yeah.
But yet they're
I
not
think
paying
so.
it because it's not been addressed?
They're not really collecting it. No, they're missing out on revenue, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know all the details on that, but I think that's the basic.
That would be my first question. So, I was thinking, as the vice mayor was speaking, if we have a Farragut resident who is looking to subsidize income, I'm assuming they could go into a long-term rental of a room. Right. So, short-term rental is not just the only solution. Secondly, another point is that we don't have a police force right now that enforces our noise ordinances, where Knoxville does. So we have to take that in consideration, that if we have nuisance and noise from short-term rentals, who's going to go tell them to be quiet?
So you don't have any,
We don't have a police force. We use the sheriff's department, and
So
so the sheriff's department does not enforce the town of Farragut's noise ordinances.
Okay.
So we don't have that
a-
luxury.
We don't have a noise ordinance because we don't have a.
We don't have a way to enforce it.
Yeah, so we don't have a police department and we don't have a noise ordinance. So now we're doubly in a tight situation. So we don't have a. Bottom line is the town of Farragut doesn't have a way to address nuisance. Being a home HOA board member myself, I'm not interested in having to go deal with nuisance in my neighborhood as a board member. So just want to make that point, that the city of Farragut, or the city of Knoxville, does have a way to deal with nuisance where we don't.
Drew?
I look at the need, current and future. I think it makes more sense for Knoxville. I think UT is the biggest driver of that. There's aspects of it, kind of like you said, Louise, that makes a lot of sense. And then if somebody told me my neighbor was going to do that, I would not be on board with that. So I think I'm in favor of the ordinance as it is.
Okay, we've heard from everyone. I'm also a supporter of the ordinance. Our staff has spent a lot of time working on it. I think it will serve us right for the time being. I have an aunt that has a rental, or she has a basement that she rents out. It's a long-term rental. She is on a fixed income, and that long-term rental is a supplement for her. She's not capable. She would be an owner occupied person if it was short term, but she's not capable of doing what needs to be done to keep it up, and that is my concern on the whole subject matter. Mm-hmm. So I think we probably need to go ahead and vote.
Okay, Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Like for the ordinance.
We're voting for the ordinance.
Yeah,
as it reads
it'd be
now.
a vote will be a roll call, and yes will be the for the motion.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk.
Yes.
Alderman Pavlin.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Some clarity,
You
yeah.
gave us a lot to think about, and it may be something that we need to, if we have a town center, we may want to address this in the future. Right now, we don't even have an occupancy tax, so, and they're quietly existing. It was one of those things where the state kind of pushed us into a position where we felt we needed to at least address it and move along. But I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Or if you see other things happening with Knox County, and it's something that you can bring to us with more information, then I think it would be very helpful.
I do. I would like that, please.
And she can make copies for all of us.
Thank you.
Come give it to.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay.
You want to make the copies?
Yeah.
You want Allison to?
I'll give it,
Okay.
yeah. After the meeting, I'll give it to her. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Appreciate it,
I appreciate
Jennifer.
your time.
Okay, let the record show ordinance 1920 was approved on the first reading. Okay, next will be ordinance 19-21. This is an ordinance on the first reading to amend Chapter 3, Specific District Regulations, Section 7, Open Space Residential Overlay District, which is OSR, Subsection E, Part 5, Maximum Lot Coverage, to revise and clarify the calculation of total building area and total lot coverage.
Although the staff's really talked about addressing the language in the formula that determines coverage in the OSR, it really came to a head at a Board of Zoning Appeals meeting a couple months ago when we had an applicant that questioned the interpretation of the formulas that are used to determine building and lot coverage. Building coverage is basically just the percentage or the area of a lot that's covered by a structure that has a roof over it. And lot coverage is building coverage plus other non-vegetative surfaces like driveways, sidewalks, decks that might not have a roof over them, that kind of thing. So in the current formula, the language talks about the total number of dwelling units in the development. That's what you end up dividing by ultimately. The intent when this district was created, actually back in 2006, was to base the formula on the overall size of the development and the total number of planned building lots in the development. We had an attorney that kind of interpreted the language in its exact format, I suppose, and basically was arguing that the coverage would be based on the number of dwelling units that were in existence at the time a building permit was filed for his particular client. Of course, nobody's ever taken that interpretation, but we did realize that was some language that needed to match the intent, and it did not. so it's something that needed to be cleaned up. And so this particular ordinance does get rid of the reference to total number of dwelling units in the development, and we replace it with all planned and approved platted lots within the entire development. So it's real clear, how this formula is being derived and what it's based on and so forth. So, and we also tried to clarify in this ordinance really the process of calculating the coverages. It's a little bit cumbersome if you just kind of look at it. There's a lot of numbers and multiplications and divisions and things, but really it's not that difficult if you think it through. And then we wanted to also address a situation where you have someone that maybe has combined a lot or 3 lots into one. Currently, they would really be held to the same number, coverage number or percentage as if it were one, the 2 lots that were, previously combined. So they don't get a benefit of a little more coverage by combining lots under the current language. And what we did is try to address that and give them the ability to go up 50% of the smallest lot that was combined, so that they do have an additional amount of coverage. It would still be lower than what would be allowed for 2 separate lots, but it would be greater as a result of combining those. So basically what we've tried to do in the ordinance is clarify how we derive our coverages, and you take, and there was an example in the packet where we used a 100-acre tract, and the current formula takes 75% of the gross land area, and you divide and you multiply that actually by the allowable coverage in the base zoning district, which for OSR is R1. The building coverage in R1, just regular R1, is 25% of the lot. The total coverage is 35%. So you take that, and that gives you a certain amount of acreage that can be consumed by a building coverage in that overall development, and lot coverage, depending on which calculation you're using. And you can divvy that up either equally for every lot based on that acreage, or you can have maybe in a larger concept like Bridgemore, for example, where they have in their master concept much smaller lots in the northwest that hadn't been developed yet, but portion of their development. And you can apportion that overall acreage of coverage within the development in a manner that is consistent with your larger vision for maybe the different types of development plans that you may see in different portions of maybe a larger tract. You may have we have some lots in Bridgemore. They haven't been platted yet, but they're as small as 6,000 square feet. So they are in the concept plan. So that would allow you to, create that coverage for those lots, and then to maybe have a much larger amount of coverage for larger lots. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. You just need to, show that up front, and and be clear on what you're doing throughout the process of developing the property. So when this was presented to the Planning Commission for a vote in May, they did unanimously recommend approval of Ordinance 19-21, and the staff recommends approval on first reading.
I'm going to move to approve Ordinance 19-21 on first reading.
I'll second it.
Discussion? I think this is a great improvement. It was kind of vague before, and I think what went to the BZA.
I appreciate this.
Yeah,
I appreciate it very much. Thank
so good job there, Mark. I think
Interesting interpretation, but that's what.
Any more discussion? If not, Let's have a roll call vote on this as well.
Okay, and this would be to approve ordinance 19-21 on first reading. Alderman Burnett. Alderman Meyer. Yes.
Yes.
Alderman Povlin.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay. Let the record show that ordinance 19-21 was approved on the first reading. Okay. Citizens Forum, do we have anyone signed up to speak tonight?
Yes, sir. We have one speaker. It is Jim Caldwell.
If so, I will ask each speaker if they've had the opportunity to read the comment protocol. It's located on the back of the agenda.
Yes, I did, sir.
Okay. And if so, please step to the microphone and state your name and address.
I'm Jim Caldwell. I live at 205 Longbow Road.
205
Longbow Road.
Longbow.
In the Fort West subdivision in Farragut.
Fort West. Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
I don't know if any of you have seen the latest issue of the Farragut Press today, but it was something that came out. It was printed in the paper. It also affected what I'm going to talk about today. And it says, basically, does the town of Farragut have an identity in regard to the federal government, in regards to area code, or zip code rather, 37934? And the reason I say that is, and it's kind of interesting, there was an article in the paper today about someone who went to a driver's license to have his or her driver's license renewed and was told by the people at the Driver's License Bureau that the Department of Homeland Security does not recognize Farragut as a legitimate town of the United States. And it is Knoxville. And that is something that has bothered me ever since the zip code 37934 came into existence. I live in Farragut. I do not live in Knoxville. I do not live in Concord. I live in the town of Farragut. We chose Farragut because of what it offers. The people, the neighborhoods, the schools, and so forth. I came from Charlotte. The school in Farragut was a natural merit scholarship school. It still is. But it's not in Knoxville. It's in Farragut. And so this is something that has bothered me a great deal. So you go, for example, to your license, to get your license now, the Department of Driver's License will not let you put Farragut on your driver's license. My wife recently did this, and it kind of coincides with this article in the paper. The last time we renewed our license, mine says Farragut. You can't do that anymore. It says Knoxville. So I think something needs to be done. Health insurance. When they changed it to 379, I lost my health insurance for 6 months because they said I had moved. I had to prove that I had not moved from 205 Longbow Road, Farragut, to somewhere in Knoxville. I'd had to pay a higher premium. This is something that has bothered me a great deal ever since then. And I would be willing to bet the neighborhoods that are represented here and others that are not, the majority of the people in those neighborhoods have Knoxville as their mailing address, not Farragut. I don't know about Mr. Pinchot. We live in the same neighborhood. I don't know what his address is, but I'd like to ask. But anyway, that's something. In 2017, my wife had to have open heart surgery at the Cleveland Clinic. When we presented our insurance to them, they said no, there is no such place as Farragut. So we had to go under Knoxville to do this. And this has bothered me ever since. I heard tonight a few of you saying prior to this meeting and here that there are things about Farragut that does not apply because it's just different. But yet, if it's Knoxville, why wouldn't it apply? Because it says Knoxville. Some of the things you voted on tonight could have already been there without even voting on it because we don't live in Farragut. We live in Knoxville. So this is something that bothers me. It bothers my family. It bothers others that I know. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention to see if something can't be done about getting a zip code that represents Farragut and not Knoxville. I moved here, like I said, from Charlotte. I actually from Matthews. I don't know if you're familiar with Matthews in Charlotte or not. Matthews has its own zip code. It's in the county of Mecklenburg. Farragut is a town that was organized and approved by the state of Tennessee. I'm not sure. I think 85? 80. 80? Okay. I've been here since 90. And it's still Knoxville, Concord, or Farragut. I don't know where I live. So you see people advertising, shop Farragut. You can't shop Farragut. You go in all the stores, and they're Knoxville. So this is something, gentlemen and lady, I just wanted to bring to your attention. It bothers me a great deal. My license still says Farragut. It's due for replacement in a couple of years, and I'm going to have to do Knoxville, and I don't want that. I thank you for your time. I hope something can be done, and I appreciate it very much.
Okay, sir, we sure appreciate you coming and sharing that with us. We'll
Thank
see
you,
what,
Mr. Caldwell.
see what they tell us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What would be the next steps on that? Because I agree with Mr. Caldwell wholeheartedly. I have Farragut on my driver's license also, and I want to keep it. So what are the next steps? Do we have to work with our representatives? Do we?
That's the first time I'd heard that our driver's license can't keep the name Farragut on it, because mine says Farragut as well, just like probably everybody else up here. So certainly we could follow up with the state and find out why, since the state of Tennessee is the one that issues driver's license, we can't have that done. But we can call them and find out.
Please.
You need
Please
to
step back.
share.
Yes, please.
The lady told my wife when she went to renew her license that the Department of Homeland Security does not recognize Farragut as a town. And we said, why? He said, well, for some reason they don't, because 379 is a prefix of Knoxville, and it should be Knoxville. And they said that it was in the last 30 or 45 days that they have told the Department of Motor Vehicles or whoever issues the license that it no longer is allowed to do that. And when my wife received a letter saying her license was due to be renewed, it said it came to us at Knoxville, not Farragut. And all the driver's licenses that we'd had prior to moving here in 1990 has been Farragut up to recently. So that's what they told us. And so.
What do other counties do that have several municipalities in them, and the person lives outside of in the county itself proper? Are they associated with a particular city, or do they have a I don't even know.
It all depends on their post office. Basically, the closest post office to where it delivers to their area is what they're going to be
There's
called.
There's a real interesting picture in the Farragut Press right here.
Our post office says Farragut, Tennessee.
No, it says Farragut Branch.
Farragut Branch.
It's a branch of the
It's a
Knoxville
branch of the Knoxville Post Office.
Your primary post office in Knoxville is on Wise Garber Road.
That's correct.
And,
But that's a different zip code from 37934.
Well, and here's the rub in the issue is that all of Farragut is not in 37934.
And 22.
Across the highway is 22.
But it's still Knoxville.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the town of Farragut per se, but it's still listed as Knoxville, Concord, or Farragut. And
Well, and I don't even know what Concord is. Is Concord a recognized?
Just by the post office, they allow that area to be called Concord for 37934. So we're trying to get FEMA reimbursement right now, which is also a division of the Office of Homeland Security. So hopefully our money doesn't go to the city of Knoxville and actually comes to the
That
town
would
of
be
Farragut
nice,
rather than
yeah.
them. So
Well, I
we're going to
greatly
work on
appreciate
that
the time
very
you give me.
quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
You.
Yeah, Homeland Security also issues handgun carry permits. And guess what?
What is it?
It says Farragut.
Maybe that changes recent.
It just came into existence, sir, from Mr. Williams.
Might be new.
I don't know.
I think, Allison, you might appreciate, I don't want to speak for you, but just all the painstaking time you take trying to figure out which business is in Farragut, which one's not, to get the sales tax routed to the same place. It would be very awesome if Farragut, the entire town of Farragut, had one unique zip code and was not shared with anyone. So
We're
Better after we did get 37934 from 37922. So
yeah, but
Yeah.
if we would
A lot
lose
better,
revenue
so
if we
it
didn't
would
have
be-
Allison
be a lot
Yes.
easier.
doing the research
Reviewing
that she
that,
does.
yeah.
So thank you, Allison, for your hard work on that.
That looks like it's town administrator's report. I'll now yield the floor to David Smoke.
Thank you, Mayor. This Saturday night, we've got our dedication of our stage and pavilion at Founders Park. Bud and his crew have been working diligently on that, and just poured some concrete this week. So we're really looking forward to having a great lawn chair series event, first one of the summer. But it's set for 5:30, and we had a great donation made by First Watch here in Farragut, and so we'll be cutting a ribbon there at 5:30 that night, and then having the concert right after. So hope all the board can make it if you have an
Be a
opportunity.
nice night.
Should be, absolutely. Also, in the next couple of weeks, you should be seeing some activity going on at the community center. We're finally hopefully underway. Public Building Authority with the county is heading up that team with Denark Construction doing the work. So we're looking forward to them getting started. So hopefully we can get in there by the first of the year. And that's all I have to report.
Hey, thank you, David. Town attorney's report. I'll now yield the floor to Tom Hale.
No report from me.
No report. Okay, any other board items? None. Okay, the time is approximately 8:35, and without objection, the June 13th, 2019 Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting is now adjourned.